everyone else is hopping into VR to experience more realistic racing and shooting, I'm here for one reason: to make anime real. Thus, my sights are affixed firmly on Japan and the games they're producing, and just recently there were two peculiar releases. The first is a VR patch for Touhou Kobuto V. The second is a game called VR Tennis Online. Touhou Kobuto V is a Virtual-On style Touhou spin-off, and I swear it's like the third one of these on PS4 alone. And the only one that's not available in America, I think. Not that I can blame them, as though I have not played the other two, they look legitimately better, but you promise me some VR and I'll bite. Unfortunately, the VR mode is blatantly tacked on. Inexplicably, you can only play VR in versus CPU mode. After picking your character, you scroll down to the bottom of the options and turn on the VR. Afterwards, you're given an options menu for you to adjust VR preferences. You have to do this after every match. There is no first-person option. The game is only played in third person. The first choice is how you want your camera rotation handled. By default, the camera does not turn and must be manually adjusted with the right analog stick. This sounds dumb, but I actually kind of got into following the action with my head. It's not practical, but it provided the most interesting of the VR experience. Judging by the interface, it appears the idea behind the VR mode is that you play a Tengu girl recording the action with a video camera, and the unturning camera has that effect. The first choice is manual turning by increments with the right analog stick. The second choice is smooth manual turning with the right stick, and the third option has it turn with your character automatically. I have no clue what the second, fourth, or fifth option from the top is, but the third one chooses if the camera jumps with the characters or not. By default, it does not. It's just a tacked-on bonus feature that only exists so you can view the Touhou girls in 3D. What's really annoying is that early reports about this VR mode claimed you could do two-player with one player in VR and the other on the social screen, which would have been awesome. That's like the ideal way to play Virtual-On, with each player having their own screen. But for some reason, this feature is not currently present. Despite my best efforts, I could not start a two-player match with VR on. I don't understand why you can't use VR in any of the other modes, and I think it's dumb, but oh well. The game itself is decently fun. The 3 face buttons all fire different weapons, you use the shoulder button to dash, and the attacks are different if you're standing still, dashing in the air, or air dashing, much like Virtual-On. I don't think it's quite as deep as Virtual-On, but it's a decently fun clone. I will, however, complain that the music is really flat. Touhou is legendary for its music, and yet the music here is just meh. It lacks punch and sounds hella MIDI. I only grabbed this to check out the VR, so I haven't spent any time with story mode or anything like that, not to mention I haven't played the myriad of other similar Touhou games, so I can't tell you how worthwhile this is. As it stands, it was fun to poke around at, and maybe if I actually liked Touhou, I might get into it, but I'm just really not a fan of Touhou's design aesthetics, so you'll excuse me if I refrain from giving this a review score. Mostly, I'd consider it about on par with Battle of Elemental on DSiWare. The game has more moves, not to mention characters, but that one was faster with better music and character designs. No, seriously, the music in this Touhou kinda sucks. I don't know how they pulled that off. This then brings us to VR Tennis Online, which just came out. Someone pointed to the trailer and I thought, oh geez, this is gonna be like that VR ping pong game. Well, maybe it'll have decent looking characters or something. Hey, is that a colorful anime kid? I wonder if... Wait, is that a ninja? And a robot chick? Sold. Take my money. Of course, then I realized the trailer had the most downvotes I've ever seen on a Japanese game trailer, and come to find out this game had come out before for other VR platforms where it receives scores as low as 3 out of 10. But it has ninjas and robot girls, I'm still buying it! And you know what? I'm glad I did! But, yeah, do I understand why this got such low scores. To be blunt, there is absolutely, positively, no reason for this to be a VR game, even though it has VR in the title and requires VR to play. See, the VR implementation is almost identical to that of Touhou Kobuto V. There's no first person and no motion controls. You can choose between a camera that follows behind your character, which hilariously enough looks almost identical to the camera of Mario Tennis for Virtual Boy, or a stationary camera that does not move. You will notice that your character turns according to your head tracking, but I checked and this does absolutely nothing. There is literally no reason for this to be a VR game. Not that I don't like being surrounded by the game world and getting up close with these characters, but the VR should not be required. It just acts as a barrier preventing people from playing the game. Which is a darn shame, because this is actually a pretty good arcade-style tennis game. I mean, it's no Mario Tennis, but it comes darn close. Certainly better than Outlaw Tennis, and I almost consider this better than Sega Superstars Tennis, mechanically speaking. Almost. It's a close one. The point is, I've played enough bad tennis games to know this is actually pretty good. You pick from one of 8 different characters, 4 male, 4 female, then pick 2 super moves and go on the court. Now, in Mario Tennis, and most tennis games I've played, the goal is to get to where the ball is going to land early, and input and aim your shot by pressing a combination of 2 buttons and holding a direction. Here, though, each shot gets an individual face button, and the goal is to hit the button and the ball at the exact right moment, indicated by a colored circle around the ball. It's a minor twist on the formula, but it works. And yes, hold a direction while hitting the button to aim your swing. Eventually you power up and hit one of the shoulder buttons to do a super. Yeah, pretty fun. Especially with these characters, I love the designs on them. We got the 2 generics, the robot girl, a guy who looks like Lieutenant Surge, a ninja, an idol singer girl, and an athletic Jamaican girl. They aren't the highest poly count characters, and I think I see a texture error here or there, and for some reason their clothing physics run at a lower frame rate than the rest of the game, which is weird, but I do like the fact that they made them slightly reflective. Also, there are 4 colors for each character, so everyone can play the same character if they want to. Personally, I just really love the designs. It's a darn shame, then, that the game is so sparse. You have single matches, singles or doubles, singles-only tournaments, which net you new super moves, and online play, and that's it. 8 characters, 1 court, 3 modes, not a whole lot. And then, there's the weird stuff. The utterly bizarre flaws. Like, for some reason, they assigned pause, exit matchmaking, and camera recenter to the same button. This means you cannot recenter the camera during certain instances. What's more, the camera seems to start at this super low angle I kinda like, but based on the recalibrating, you're supposed to be about shoulder level with the characters? It is well worth mentioning as well, and this is a pretty darn big flaw, that the camera that follows the characters does not back up well. For some reason, if you run too far forwards and try to back up, you have to run past the camera before it starts backing up, and you can never get the camera as far back as it was at the start of the volley. This not only makes it hard to back up, but it means it's possible to lose your character behind you. This didn't affect me too much as I played personally, and you can switch the camera to the other camera style, but it is a really big design flaw. The camera should start backing up sooner. Know what's weirder? Remember that super low angle I said the camera starts at before you recenter it? That is the exact point where the camera starts backing up, which is about a virtual foot behind where the camera is after it's been recentered. Yeah, I smell a bizarre programming bug. Also, even with the camera backing up as the character reaches it, it's still wonky. It should back up about a foot before that. And while we're talking about backing up, for some reason, characters run slower backwards than they do forwards. Huh? Also, the only time the game lacks music is during a match? Thankfully, I was able to use the PS4 media player to play the Bust a Groove soundtrack while I played, but why is there no music in a match? That seems weird. But the worst part of all that is, since this is VR, there's no offline versus. That's right, no 2-player offline. This is where the game seriously stumbles. I mean, again, if we had a setup where a TV player and a VR player each had their own screens, it would be awesome. But no, 1 player per console, gotta play it on. Thankfully, the netcode is good. Finally found a match, and aside from the opponent's character jittering and 1 ball teleport on their side, it ran just fine. I was able to play against them without issue, even though this player is in Japan. So the greatest flaw of VR Tennis Online is the VR. The tennis is good, quite good, fun gameplay and great characters, but the required VR tanks any chance I'd recommend this to anyone but the nuttiest arcade tennis fan who just happens to have a PSVR. If this had a non-VR mode and 2-player or more local play, it'd be a good tennis game, perhaps a bit pricey at $25 for only 8 characters and 3 modes, but still a good time. But just, why is this VR? The whole game could seriously be fixed with a patch. Put in non-VR play and 2 or more players local play with the VR player getting their own screen. Add some more camera angles, make the camera back up faster, make the characters move backwards faster, and you're going to have to move the start button functions to the touchpad so start can be used for camera recentering. I'm legit surprised it made it past Sony quality control with that flaw, since the start button recentering is a universal feature of the PSVR. Now just slap a few music tracks into the actual matches and you're golden. But because, again, the tennis is good. I'm having a good bit of fun with this. But the whole VR thing completely hamstrings the game, to say nothing of the bizarre collection of design hiccups and bugs. Unfortunately, this game has been out on other platforms for a while now, and from my understanding, most if not all of these flaws persist in them too, and have not been patched. So the chance of it getting patched is slim. I give it a 2.8 out of 5 because of the many weird design flaws, like making it a VR game for no reason. I still like it, but you gotta know you're walking into Wonk City with this one. Anyway, this is Gel, and you've been GameBabble. See ya!